Hello everyone, my name's Lauren Jauncey and I'm the Head of Inclusion, Diversity and Equity here at AWS across the APJ region. And I'm absolutely delighted today to have Roshni Mahtani joining us, who is the founder of theAsianparent.com. Now, I have recently been on the website and I was so pleased to see the mission, which I'm going to read to you. So the company's mission is to help 50 million families have healthy pregnancies and raise happy, healthy and confident children. Now, as the mother of 3 young daughters, this mission completely aligns to my values and I'm so excited to have you here to share your story with us today. So Roshni, can we begin by hearing about how the AsianParent.com actually began?
Thanks, Lauren. And I'm really glad that, you use the Asian Parent. And, I always say that I'm an accidental entrepreneur. I never planned on starting a company. It all was triggered because of my own Asian parents who were trying to convince me that it was about time that I had children and gave them grandchildren. So, like any typical studious person, I wasn't too sure if I really wanted children, what it actually meant to have children. So I said, hey, let's just babysit. So over the weekends, I was living in New York at that point in time. I would babysit these 2 beautiful little girls on the Upper East Side. And every time I would go over to their place, I would notice that there would be very distinct things in the Asian culture and the Western culture that were quite sometimes in opposition to each other when it came to raising children. And so one case in point, for example, was talking about food and the type of food that we eat at home. And so one of the 4-year-old girls came to me and said, hey, can you tell me about the food you eat? And can you make me some of these dishes? And I love fruits. Can you tell me about the fruits of Asia? So I said, of course, let me tell you about durian, the king of fruits. And then she was so fascinated with it. She said, can I try? And I wasn't too sure if I could feed a 4-year-old durian. Was it too much for their systems? So I went online and I started to search certain things like, can I feed a 4-year-old durian? Can I feed a 4-year-old paneer? How do I make paneer? And I noticed that there just wasn't enough information online that catered to the Asian audience. And that shocked me, right? Because if you put Asia together and all the different nationalities, you have more than half of the world's population. So there's nothing exotic about being Asian. So why is there not enough content that relates to Asians available online? So this is, content that's in local languages, looking at local culture and looking at local traditions and just the Asian way of life.
And so what was the first step? What did you do that I guess was that initial step in terms of becoming the accidental entrepreneur that you are?
So I remember holding myself up in my 1-bedroom flat and writing the first 1,000 articles myself. And it was really kind of crazy because I was 24 years old. I did not have children and I had no idea what I should be writing about, but I did a lot of research and I started talking to a lot of different families living in Asia saying, tell me about your custom, tell me about your language, what would you like to see? What would you like me to cover? So I started writing about feng shui and traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic therapies, as well as, of course, recipes. Because, if you've come to Asia, you know that it's food paradise and galore here. Everyone loves eating and talking about food.
Well, as a family who have recently moved to Singapore from Australia, I can certainly vouch for that. The food is incredible. It's one of our favourite aspects of living here. So I can see how that would have formed such an important part in terms of your journey of building your business. So, if you fast forward to now, some of the statistics in terms of the reach of your business are incredible. So the stories through your digital platforms reach more than 35 million mums in 11 Asian markets every month. So what are you doing to ensure that you fully understand your readers' needs in each of those very diverse markets?
Oh yeah, great questions, Lauren. Ultimately, it's really about listening to your readers, and we take that to a whole different level in this company. So the first thing we did was we have a market research team whose be all and end all is just to really uncover research and nuances, differences in each of the Asian markets. And we're talking about not just Indonesia versus Malaysia, but we're talking about Bandung versus Jakarta versus Surabaya versus Medan. And so we do millions and millions of quantitative and qualitative surveys that go out on a monthly basis. And this helps us determine what type of products we should be building, what type of articles we should be writing, and what product features we should be coming out with. The second thing that we have is we have a data science team who just sits there and looks at the numbers and looks at the research statistics and tries to model new behavior and new learning for the engineering team to be able to build off better products. We also look at the data and we float it out to all other markets. So we're a very data-centric company where, every single day we're logging into different dashboards to understand the different nuances and the different behavior. How long are women spending on our site? How is a pregnant woman using the Asian parent differently from a newborn mom, differently to a mom who has a 3-year-old kid or a mom who has twins? So really it's about looking at the data. And then the next thing that we do is we actually respond back to every single review that we get on the App Store. So we've got over 100,000 App Store reviews on the Google Play Store and about 40,000 on the iOS Store, so the Apple Store, and we respond back to every single one of these reviews. And I personally spend half an hour every week reading every single new review that's come in so that I can have a deep understanding and sense of what is doing well, what's not doing well, what do people want to see more of, what are people not enjoying, and then take that feedback into our next sprint cycle or our next planning session. And then the last thing that we do is we have a council of moms who work with us in each country and each market, and a council of healthcare professionals, and they give us advice on how we can better tailor our content as well as our product to suit the local market.
Wow, there's a whole lot of work that goes into really understanding, your customers, which is super, super interesting. So no doubt lots of diverse insights that you gain from that. But are there one or two things that just remain constant across all of your customers?
I think so. I think at the end of the day, every woman wants to have a happy family, and everyone wants to have a happy, healthy pregnancy, as well as raise happy, healthy, and confident children. We all want to give the best to our child and make sure that they have a better life than what we had.
Wonderful. I absolutely love that. So Roshni, a big part of what you do is bring families of Asia together. And though they may be accessing technology in fairly different ways as you operate across mature and emerging markets, have you encountered gender or cultural bias yourself? And how did you overcome this?
I could write a whole book about this. So I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to cover all of the different types of biases, but it does exist. I think that's the sad reality. As much as we wish it didn't, and women, we're half of the world's population. Why are we still considered a minority? It's something. It's a fact I can't even grasp. The fact that women are half of the world's population and we're considered the minority. It just doesn't make sense to me. And if you look at it, when I start from my starting journey point, being an entrepreneur, I had a couple of strikes against me. The first one was, I'm a woman. The second one was, I was young. I was 24 years old when I started a business. And then the third one was, I was from a minority race. So, I had these 3 strikes against me, and you had to go out there and convince a whole room of older Caucasian men at that point in time to invest in my business. And I would get certain questions like, for example, once you get pregnant or when you become a mom, will you stop running this business? I would look at them and I would be very baffled, and I'd say, hey, if I had a child, that would be great news for the company, because I just legitimized this whole business. So you want me to get pregnant, you want me to have children. Even today, now when I try to go and raise funding, I have, so we have content, community, and commerce. So we have our own direct-to-consumer brand, and we produce things like stretch mark creams and diaper rash creams. And we have a really, really popular nipple cream. And sometimes when I would go into these meetings and I would explain to the venture capitalist about the different types of products we have and talk to them about how unique our nipple cream is and how fast selling it is, they would clam up and they would say, why are you talking to me about female genitalia? And I had this meeting with this, top rated VC fund. And after about 5 minutes, the investment professional turned to me and said, could you use a different word? And I said, what do you mean? And he says, why are you using that female anatomy so much? Just change the name, just call it something else. And I was like, you want me to change the name of a nipple? Like, what do I call it? It's a female body part.
So Roshni, what do you do when those situations occur? Because I think sometimes you can probably get caught a little bit off guard in that. I mean, I would be shocked if someone was challenging me on a nipple cream, for example. I mean, what do you do in that situation?
Besides rolling my eyes and trying to laugh it off, I think the main thing is to call it out. So to have, conversations like this where we talk openly about it, we don't try to pad it up and, put it in a little box and hide it away and say it doesn't exist. The fact is it exists. So let's talk about it. And so that's why having, gender diversity councils and conversations like this is so important. And we don't have it enough. And I really, it's great to see companies like AWS talking about it so openly and making it such a focal point. And we need more and more conversations like this. And for myself, I set up a nonprofit organization called Female Founders that looks at research, that looks at advocacy, and it really tries to, share with men that what's okay questions that you can ask, and what are questions that you shouldn't be asking, and what are behaviors that's not acceptable. And some of them are so basics, but sometimes you just have to go through the basics.
Yeah, it's such good advice, and I agree with you 100%. I think talking about these things is the first most important step, and calling it out and creating those cultures whereby both men and women and everyone feels confident to call out when those biases are coming into play. So Roshni, your business is really founded on this notion of creating inclusive communities and creating inclusive families through these digital platforms. I'm really interested to hear what other work you're doing beyond the digital space in terms of supporting communities in an inclusive way.
Thanks, Lauren, for asking me this question. Actually, as a company, there's a cause that we've taken on that's very important to us and very close to our heart, and we've taken on this pledge to reduce the number of stillbirth rates in Asia by 10% in the next 3 years. It takes a whole village to raise a family and to raise a child. But when that child becomes a star in the sky, that community is needed even more. And when we were looking at our data, we realized that in Southeast Asia, there are more than 110,000 babies born still every single year. A lot of these deaths could be prevented. So we've come up with an initiative that looks at 3 different messages. The first one is to sleep on your side. The second is to track your kicks. And the third one is to not smoke. And we're trying to create tools, platforms, and just advocacy around these 3 messages so that we can try to reduce these numbers.
Wow, Roshni, that is amazing work. You've given me goosebumps, and thank you for your incredible passion and energy in this space. It means so much to so many women and so many families. So inclusion and diversity is really close to both of our hearts. I'm really keen to hear if you have any final messages to our watchers today around how we can all make a really valuable contribution to creating more diverse and inclusive communities.
So if you're a woman, I think the main thing is don't let anyone hold you back. Don't let anyone hold you down. Break all the rules. You're amazing, you're capable of achieving greatness, believe in yourself, and break the rules. And if you're a guy, cut her some slack, lend a hand, let's share the load. So I think if we can do both of this, if women can believe in themselves and if men will share the load, we'll be in a much better world.
I think that advice is absolutely spot on. Well, Roshni, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. I've learnt so much, and I'm sure that everyone else watching has learnt a huge amount as well. All the best with your business. We look forward to continuing to support you and to hear of your incredible stories. And thank you for your amazing work to help create more inclusive communities.
Thank you so much, Lauren.